Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an idea that shapes pretty much everything about our modern world, from our rights to our governments, and that idea is liberalism. So let me ask you a question. What does it actually mean to be an individual? For most of human history, the answer was pretty simple. You were just part of a group. But one powerful idea came along and completely turned that answer on its head. That idea, of course, is liberalism, and we're about to see just how it reshaped everything. To really get the massive impact of liberalism, we have to rewind the clock a bit. We've got to start with the world it replaced, a world where the individual, as we think of it, didn't really even exist. Just try to imagine it, a world where your entire life path was set the moment you were born. You weren't seen as a unique person with your own hopes and dreams. You were a peasant, or a noble, or a craftsman. Your identity wasn't really yours to choose. It was defined by your family, your village, your social class. Your life was, basically, your group's life. But as that old feudal system started to crumble and new market economies began to pop up, a radical, revolutionary idea started to take hold. All of a sudden, people weren't just cogs in a machine anymore. They were actually being encouraged to think for themselves, to make their own choices, and to build their own destiny. And this new way of thinking wasn't some quiet, gradual shift. Oh no, it was explosive. It sparked a whole series of revolutions across the Western world that challenged the old order of kings and aristocrats. And at the very heart of every single one of them was a brand new hero, the individual. The name for this new philosophy was individualism. And look, this wasn't just a minor tweak, it was a complete 180. For the first time in history, a single person was seen as being more important than any group, which put the individual right at the center of the political universe. Okay, so if the individual is now the star of the show, what kind of society do you build around them? Well, liberalism is built on a few core ideas that try to answer that exact question. First up, and this one is the big one, is freedom. For liberals, freedom isn't something a government gives you. It's a natural right you are born with. It's seen as absolutely essential if you want to live a truly fulfilling human life. But, and this is a big but, this doesn't mean you have the absolute freedom to do whatever you want. The philosopher John Stuart Mill came up with something called the harm principle. Basically, it's the old saying, your freedom to swing your fist ends exactly where someone else's nose begins. Your liberty isn't a license to hurt other people. The second pillar here is reason. This idea, which came straight out of the Enlightenment, is all about the power of the human mind. The argument is that we don't have to just rely on ancient traditions or superstitions anymore. Instead, we can use logic and science to understand our world, solve our problems, and hopefully build a better future. Right, but if you have a society full of free individuals, you're going to need a system to make sure things are fair. And that brings us to our third core theme, justice. For liberals, justice means giving each person what they're due, and it all starts with a deep belief in equality. Now, this commitment to equality has a few different layers. First, there's the belief that we're all born with the same natural rights. Second, that we should all have the same status before the law. And third, and this is a huge one, is that everyone should have an equal opportunity to go as far as their talents will take them. This is really the foundation of what we call a meritocracy, a society where your success depends on your ability and your hard work, not on who your parents were. So our fourth core theme flows pretty logically from the others. I mean, if you have a society full of free, rational individuals, they're not all going to agree on everything, right? This is where tolerance comes in. This famous quote, which is often credited to Voltaire, just captures the idea perfectly. It's about defending the right of other people to have different beliefs and live different lives, which is how you create a pluralistic society. But here's where the story gets a little more complicated. Liberalism wasn't just one single unchanging idea. As it developed and had to deal with the challenges of a new industrial world, a huge split happened, a real fork in the road that ended up creating two very different versions of liberalism. And that split created two major traditions that, believe me, still shape our politics in a huge way today: classical liberalism and modern liberalism. And their core disagreement really just boils down to one big question: what is the proper role of the state? Classical liberals, they argue for what's called a night watchman state, basically a government that's minimal, protects your rights, and then pretty much leaves you alone. Modern liberals, on the other hand, want an enabling state, a government that can actually step in to help people overcome barriers so they can truly reach their potential. This one fundamental disagreement about the role of the state, it creates this huge ripple effect. It leads to totally different views on, well, almost everything. As you can see right here, it changes how each side defines freedom, the economy, even justice itself. Let's dig into the most important difference.
At the very heart of the divide is how you define freedom. Classical liberals are all about negative freedom, which is being free from outside interference. Just leave people alone. Modern liberals, though, they focus on positive freedom. That's having the actual ability, the resources, to go after your goals. This little difference between freedom from and freedom to is what shapes their entire worldview.
So what is the legacy of these powerful and sometimes competing ideas? To put it simply, they built the modern world. Seriously, it is almost impossible to overstate their influence. One of its absolute greatest legacies is constitutionalism. Because liberals have always been deeply suspicious of concentrated power, they designed systems to put real limits on government. Think about things like written constitutions, bills of rights that protect you as an individual, and the separation of powers. All of these are designed as checks and balances to make sure that no one person or group can ever get total control and threaten your liberty. And that framework, the idea of limited government, combined with a democratic commitment to the people having the power, that is what we call liberal democracy. And it has become, by far, the most successful and widespread political system in the modern world. But its success has never gone unchallenged. From the very beginning, liberalism has had to defend itself against competing ideas like socialism and conservatism, against the more recent rise of authoritarian movements, and even against some tough questions about whether its values are truly universal. Which brings us right back to where we started. In a world that's grappling with new technologies, global crises, and deep, deep political divides, the story of liberalism is far from over. The debate keeps going, and it leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In the 21st century, what does it truly mean